Tonight, one couple's desperate journey for survival. An Ayrshire man and his Ukrainian wife flee from Kyiv and cross the Romanian border.
I felt guilt because
people left behind.
Russian forces are continuing their assault and have taken charge of Europe's largest nuclear plant. Also making the headlines, the spiralling cost of living. The mum and daughter whose energy bills are going to more than double to £855 a month. A special report from Nottingham on how its workplace parking levy scheme operates, as councils here get the power to introduce charges for car parking provided by employers.
And Rangers manager tells supporters to focus on backing the team instead of the Australian friendly against Celtic.
I'm Gordon Cree in Edinburgh.
And I'm Sophie Wallace in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A Scot has described having just 10 minutes to decide whether to risk leaving Kyiv with his Ukrainian wife or stay behind. James Gibson from Ayrshire was sheltering in the basement of his apartment block with his wife Anna when they received an offer of a lift.
The couple packed as much as they could before sprinting to their getaway vehicle. They managed to cross the border into Romania. From there, they've been speaking to our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie.
This is where we spent the night.
When the explosions around Kyiv grew louder and more frequent, James and his wife Anna retreated to their basement.
Family's all here.
The next morning, they received a call offering them space in a car leaving the city.
We just had to make this decision to go, and in 10 minutes before we knew it, we had gone from the basement back up to our flat on the 13th floor and back down again, arriving at this car. And literally, just not really knowing where we were going. And we didn't personally know the driver.
Anna's mother decided to stay behind in Kyiv.
We know she's not going to come. We know she's not going to move. And it's like, but she said to go. And so, we just made the choice and went.
This is the 10-kilometre line to the border with Romania.
Relying on the kindness of strangers for shelter, food and transport, they were dropped off as close to the border as possible.
We walked, dragging the suitcase and backpacks on the back, and we walked to the border, and then we waited there for about
6.5 hours.
6.5 hours. Once we reached the border, we had to stand in the throngs of people, kind of for 6 and a bit hours, and that was tense because everybody's packed in, everybody's worried that they're not going to get over.
This is the line of people waiting to get out.
And 2 or 3 times we were right at the front, and they said, "Okay, we'll let 50 people go or whatever," and you would get swamped, and other people would get past you, but people don't have suitcases or whatever. So 3 times we were right there, and we didn't get to cross. So you start to think, we ever going to get across here, or is somebody going to get crushed or trampled? So when we did get through, that was just like relief.
I felt guilt because
people left behind. Yeah, you feel guilty for going, because you see how brave and how heroic just regular civilians are being.
I feel that I'm guilty that I'm now out and I'm safe.
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
While they may have fled their home as the violence escalates, the couple say one day they hope to return. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
An amazing story there. Well, meanwhile, in Scotland, the volume of aid and donations for Ukraine continues to gather momentum. Charities and organisations across the country are calling for people to give what they can to help the people in desperate need.
And with Russia intensifying military strikes aimed at its key targets, the concern for those caught up in the conflict continues to grow. Joanne Bonner has this report as the people of Ukraine face their 8th day of the invasion.
Hundreds of miles away from their families and friends who are facing daily bombardment, these Ukrainian students do what they can to help, collecting clothes, toys, phone chargers and any donations they can gather. As the war enters its 2nd week, the feelings of helplessness and worry for those back at home can be overwhelming. Overnight, Russia's attack on Europe's largest nuclear power plant only increases the sense of fear.
When you call your parents and they don't pick up, for example, if they're busy, you start to think of the worst. You check up on news, you see the streets that you know, the schools that you know getting destroyed. Just today, one of my friends, her little sister's school got destroyed.
My 86-year-old grandfather is for the 2nd time in his life since 1944 hiding in bomb shelters. My 13-year-old cousin gets back to me every single day with hourly updates on whether the sky is clear above his head and whether there are any missiles in there. So it's very much, it has changed the course of our lives, I think.
These boxes are packed with ventilators, bandages and syringe pumps as the Scottish Government sends a £1 million batch of medical supplies urgently requested by the Ukrainian authorities.
Obviously, with the overnight scenes that we've seen with civilians being targeted and killed in towns and villages across Ukraine, these supplies are clearly going to be needed. So 40 crates in total coming here from Scotland. It's going to add to the support that will be getting sent over from around Europe. And I would really encourage people across Scotland to look to those registered charities that are supporting people on the ground and to provide their support if they can.
One such charity is Glasgow Caring City, which raised £20,000 to send another lorry load of aid to Ukraine. Agencies are now asking the public to donate money rather than goods.
To have people follow our Just Giving page, enable us with as much cash as we can to be able to make the shipments that we're making today and also procure locally the things that we can't send from the UK. Our charity partners on the ground are continuously giving us information about the demographics of the refugees, their needs that they're presenting with, so we can tailor the aid that we send over to that local intelligence.
And as international businesses suspend trade with Russia, iron brew makers AG Bar have followed suit, saying they won't fulfil any more orders for the brand, believed to be Russia's 3rd biggest selling soft drink. Joanne Bonner, STV News.
Now, a mum from Clackmannanshire who cares for her daughter who has cerebral palsy says she fears they'll become homeless as a result of an extortionate rise in their energy costs, with her bills set to double.
Carolyn Hunter's monthly bills at her home in Tillycountry are due to go up in April by more than £550. She's calling for more support for vulnerable people who are struggling to make ends meet. Susan Ripple reports.
This is Freya's bed and this is electric as well.
Because of the care Carolyn's daughter needs, her energy costs have been high in recent years, although manageable. But that's about to change. She's been told her monthly bills are going up from £300 to £855.
I actually had to kind of look at it about 5 times to kind of absorb what it said, and it was £855 a month. And I actually couldn't believe it.
I love you. Yes, I do.
Carolyn cares for her daughter Freya, who has complex needs. Unless something changes, she says the family will have to leave their home and Freya will likely have to live elsewhere.
I fought for 12 years of Freya's life to give her a comfortable life and, make sure she survives and she's happy. And now I'm thinking I'm going to lose her. And then we probably will have to move out of this house and we'll be homeless because I can't afford to pay £855 a month.
She feels there should be more support for people struggling to take on such high costs.
I feel quite vulnerable, actually, really vulnerable, because I don't know how this is going to go. I'm not in control of what's happening. So, you know, I don't feel safe. I don't feel like my family's safe.
Scottish Power says it appreciates Carolyn's concerns, but it's down to the size of her house and the volatility in the wholesale energy market. Susan Ripple, STV News.
Clyde Football Club has U-turned on the decision to bring rapist David Goodwilly back to the club. They terminated his contract just hours after North Lanarkshire Council said he was no longer permitted inside Broadwood Stadium.
The footballer will instead be returning to Raith Rovers, but he won't be playing there either. Vanessa Taff has the latest.
Well, the controversy surrounding David Goodwilly's place at Clyde FC is rumbling on after the club decided they no longer want the striker on their team. Now, they were basically forced into that by North Lanarkshire Council, who are denying him access to the stadium here at Broadwood. Now, this is after the ladies' side said that they wouldn't play anymore over Goodwilly's return, and STV News understands that they're still sticking firm with that decision. Now, those involved in growing the women's game say that sometimes decisions made by the men's team are throwing up barriers to more women playing the sport.
Unfortunately, the experience that we've had over the last few weeks has been that decisions that have been made that haven't been consultative, that haven't felt that they've engaged with the women's club or thought about their perspective have left us trying to ensure that women aren't lost for the game forever. And I think that's the wrong outcome from things like this.
When Goodwilly moved to Raith Rovers at the end of January, their women's team were furious. They broke away and they've rebranded themselves as McDermott Ladies. Now, it's my understanding that Clyde ladies players still want to play, and they're also looking to potentially break away and rebrand themselves as well. But we're awaiting further confirmation on that. Vanessa Taff, STV News, Cumbernauld.
Other stories across Scotland, and detectives investigating the murder of a bank manager shot dead on his doorstep 18 years ago have travelled to Canada. Alistair Wilson was murdered in Nairn in 2004. Police renewed their appeal 2 years ago and have now travelled to Nova Scotia to conduct witness interviews.
2 paddleboarders were rescued by Largs RNLI after being blown out to sea on Wednesday. The lifeboat, with the help of the Coast Guard rescue helicopter, pulled the teenagers to safety after they were found clinging onto their boards, which had flipped in the strong winds.
The actor John Stahl, who was best known for his role as Inverdarach in STV's High Road, has died, aged 69. He appeared in the soap for more than 20 years and more recently was in several episodes of Game of Thrones. STV said it was saddened to hear of his loss, and his thoughts and sympathies are with his family.
Labour wants to make residential care free for everyone over 65 who needs it. The party's Scottish leader, Anna Sarwar, told Labour's conference that it would be the single greatest reform of the care service in 20 years.
He launched the party's new Thistle logo, but admitted they needed to do much more to win back voters. Here's our political editor, Colin Mackay.
Like everywhere else, the biggest issue at the Scottish Labour conference is the war in Ukraine. The party's conference set turned from red to blue and yellow. And the Shadow Scottish Secretary told delegates of his experience in the Ukrainian election in 2018.
I saw firsthand the beating heart of a fledgling democracy and what it means to the Ukrainian people. I saw a vibrant, multicultural European capital. I saw a strong, sovereign nation choose its own leaders without fear and its own future without coercion. But 8 days ago, an evil, imperialistic dictator, terrified of a free people, sought to end that democracy.
This is Anas Sarwar's first conference as leader, Labour's first Scottish conference in 3 years. Today he led conference support for Ukraine.
Let's be clear. Vladimir Putin will not win. He will pay a heavy price. Peace will prevail. And I am proud this morning that we sent our own strong message of solidarity. Conference, let's show that our thoughts, our solidarity and our resolve are with the Ukrainian people. We stand with you.
In a long speech, he set out plans to make residential care free to all over 65s who need it. But the main thrust of his conference speech was about the future, moving the country on.
We need to stop doing politics the way our opponents do politics, pitting Scot against Scot, yes against no, Remain against Leave, Holyrood against Westminster. An obsession with the politics of the past with no real answers for the future. That approach is out of touch, and they are out of ideas. That's why conference, the best hope, the only hope of building the future Scotland deserves, is Scotland's Labour Party.
And as Sarwar knows that a new logo is not enough to win back Labour voters, he wants to move on from the constitutional debate. We'll see in the council elections in May if voters are ready to go with him.
And Colin, what would that big policy cost?
Labour reckons it would cost about £1 billion a year. That money would come from spending consequentials from the UK government. The Scottish Government says that money is already budgeted for. It's already allocated to the NHS and to the care service. But realistically, Labour is nowhere near government, so it's not like they're going to have to deliver it anyway. But this was a very open and honest speech from Anas Sarwar. He spoke very movingly about his own experience of racism in Scotland and his family's experience of that. And he was very open as well about the challenges facing Labour. He says they've got to end their culture of defeatism. Look to the future. That word was the dominant word of his speech, future. And immediately they've got to look at the council elections in May. Tomorrow it'll be back to Ukraine. We'll hear from Sir Keir Starmer, the UK leader, about how he thinks UK politics need to be cleaned up and Putin needs to be cleaned out of it.
OK, Colin, for now, thank you. From today, local authorities have the power to introduce a new scheme that would mean businesses having to pay for their parking spaces. Currently, only Edinburgh and Glasgow are considering the workplace parking levy.
Critics say it's a double tax on an industry that needs to recover from the pandemic. Our reporter Ivana Holland travelled to Nottingham, the only city in the UK where the levy is applied, to find out if it's a success.
Nottingham has a legendary history of taking money and giving it back in other ways. In 2012, businesses were charged for the right to park at their own premises, a concept that may have sent many running for Sherwood Forest. A decade on, the public are still having mixed feelings about the levy.
We do have to change things, so I was a bit moany at first, but I quickly got used to the idea.
People still need cars, they've got other things to do after work as well, caring, for example.
We've got a good bus network and a good tram network, and it's all very environmental too. Keeps cars off the roads.
I drive into the city, others also drive into the city. The last thing you want is everyone to be reliant upon public transport. The parking levy, bad idea in my opinion.
The City Council, however, insists it works.
It's been very successful. Clearly there was a lot of opposition to the idea, but we haven't lost any businesses in Nottingham. In fact, people have come here because of our good public transport system.
David, would you recommend this scheme to Scottish local authorities who are considering it at the moment?
Absolutely, I would. I'd encourage Scottish authorities to consider it very carefully.
The cost is £458 per bay for firms with 11 spaces or more. The business can pay it themselves or pass it on to their employees. Car use in Nottingham is down 7% since 2002. In its first 8 years of operation, the workplace levy has generated nearly £90 million, which has been fed back into public transport. And that in itself has gone to pay for 2 new tram lines in the city's network. It's also helping to fund one of the largest fleets of electric buses in Europe. And it's helped pay for the city's bike share scheme. The CO2 emissions in Nottingham have been cut by 41% since 2015. Edinburgh and Glasgow city councils are the only 2 local authorities in Scotland considering the scheme, and they say any such move isn't likely to happen for a number of years. But those working in the aviation industry argue the public transport infrastructure doesn't exist to impose such an expense.
There simply is no alternative for them but to use cars to commute to and from work. So a workplace parking levy is something that we strongly oppose. We believe all of our staff strongly oppose it. And when this idea was last mooted 3 years ago, our staff really did rise up right to their MSPs and say, look, this isn't the right thing. It was put back firmly into the long grass, and that's where it needs to go again.
In the midst of a cost of living crisis, the workforce might hope this idea will be parked for some time yet. Ivana Holland, STV News.
Glasgow's cycle shed scheme is set to expand, creating nearly 3,000 secure bike spaces. The units will be placed in residential areas across the city, as Sasha Spratt reports.
Lockdown saw more of us than ever using two wheels over four. But with more bikes, the question is where to keep them.
There's plenty of places to lock your bike up in the city, but I also take my bike into the house because I wouldn't trust it out in the street. I certainly see people on a regular basis who had their bike stolen, and even though they've got a good lock, it's quite often that they have somebody comes along with a power tool.
Could these be the answer? Dubbed bike hangers, the secure sheds hold 6 bikes and take up the same space as a car.
Most of the time when people tell us the bike gets stolen, we ask where from, and you know where it is from? From inside the tenement, in the staircase of the tenement. So most people come in and change their bike in the tenement, and it's actually the less safe place you can find. So this makes a huge difference.
61 bike shelters are already in place across Glasgow, but there are 1,500 people waiting for spaces. The City's Council have now given the green light to expand the scheme. 77 more storage units will be installed this year, and then 120 each year for the next 3 years.
We've seen schemes like this roll out successfully in other cities, so we knew that it would go well. I think we were still quite taken aback to find ourselves with 98% capacity very, very quickly, and also that we've now got 1,500 people on the waiting list. That's huge demand. It shows that we need to keep rolling this scheme out, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Anyone looking to sign up to the scheme can do so through the Cycle Hoop website. Sasha Spratt, STV News, Glasgow.
All right, a big weekend for sport. Raman has the details.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Giovanni van Bronckhorst is calling for Rangers supporters to get behind the club in their quest to retain the Premiership, rather than focus on the controversial friendly against Celtic, which will take place in Australia later this year. Meanwhile, Ange Postecoglou says his team have evolved since their defeat to Livingston in September, as they get set to return to Almondvale. Here's Ronnie Charters.
They're used to displaying a banner like this, but after plans to host an Old Firm friendly down under, these are the banners being unveiled by the Rangers fans. Supporters groups have branded the venture disgusting and despicable in recent days, but with only 9 games left in the season, Giovanni van Bronckhorst says the priority must be supporting the team.
Well, the message is clear. I mean, we need all the support we have, which the supporters gave us also on last Wednesday. Of course, they are entitled to their opinions. They show they're not happy about the friendly we're going to play on November, but still they are backing us as a team and as a club.
Rangers welcome Aberdeen to Ibrox tomorrow, with Aaron Ramsey, Ryan Jack and Philippe Helander back in the squad. Over at Celtic, Ange Postecoglou picked up the Manager of the Month award after 4 wins from 5 in February. They head to Livingston on Sunday, having previously lost 1-0 there in September.
So I think both teams, to be honest, have probably evolved a bit since then. I think more relevant is, we've looked at them recently and how they've gone about things recently and taken that as our reference point rather than sort of, the way we went against them in the other 2 games. For us, as always, we just make sure that we prepare and respect every opponent we play for, and we prepare the same way.
Georgios Giacomakis is back in contention after recovering from an illness, with David Turnbull and Kyogo still out. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Motherwell's league game against Dundee will go ahead. That's despite a COVID outbreak at the Dark Blues club. Well, there are the Premiership fixtures this weekend. Rangers against Aberdeen. St Mirren travel to Ross County. And on Sunday, the Livingston v Celtic match is a 12 noon kick-off. Tennis news, and Andy Murray is to be reunited with coach Ivan Lendl for a 3rd time. Murray first appointed Lendl in 2011 for 3 years, then again in 2016. The pair struck a successful partnership, with the 34-year-old winning 3 Grand Slam titles and 2 Olympic gold medals over the 2 periods. They will work together over the next few months as the former world #1 prepares for the grass season. Rugby news, and after the Six Nations games last weekend, Glasgow Warriors return to league action tomorrow. Danny Wilson's side travel to Wales to take on Scarlets. The Warriors sit third in the table. Their opponents are fourth bottom.
Yeah, we speak about where we sit in the table and how important games are, but you know, it's one at a time. Like even those teams that are below us, I mean, they're all scrapping to get up, to climb the ladder. To knock us off it. So for us to try and maintain our own levels and our standards to try and stay up there, we need to constantly just get better every game.
Finally, ahead of his chance to impress NFL scouts this weekend, Scotland's David Ojabo says it's his destiny to make it as a professional American footballer. The Aberdeen-raised athlete is predicted to be one of the first players selected in next month's NFL draft. He spoke to the media in Indianapolis at the annual Combine event today.
I'm a Scottish guy, born in Nigeria, and just trying to learn this new sport and just stay the best at it, honestly.
He's certainly a man that's going places. That is all sport for me tonight, folks. Have a great weekend. See you again on Monday.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
To the weather now, and the sun is coming out to play. Sean has the forecast.
Well, in more eastern areas, we've held on to cloud and outbreaks of rain today. Lovely spells of sunshine in the west, and look at all the sunshine out to the west of us. High pressure building as well. So that's good news for most of us this weekend. It's going to feel very spring-like in the sunshine. Lots of sunshine, but still a few showers in the north. Let's have a look at the forecast.
The outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Now, if you're watching from Kincardine, Livingston, Bathgate, Falkirk, Grangemouth, Stirling, I was painting a rather pessimistic picture for tomorrow because it looked as if the weather front that's brought us the cloud and outbreaks of rain today was going to linger on. But good news, it clears well off into the North Sea tonight, so we get to join in the weekend sunshine as well. So a cheerful weekend to come for many of us. A perfect weekend for making sure your wee plant pots are ready for the spring and the garden tidied up as well. Now, a cold, frosty night to come. Temperatures will be down to about -1, -2, so a frosty start tomorrow, but a beautifully sunny start. Lots of blue skies to start with, but we'll see a wee bit more cloud bubbling up, especially over the mainland into the afternoon, but many of us still hanging on to lots of sunshine. Now, what I want you to look at here is numbers in our wind arrows. The winds are going to be fairly light tomorrow. The sunshine is now getting a lot stronger. We're about 3 months away from the summer solstice, the peak in strength. So despite the temperatures only rising to about 6 or 7 degrees Celsius, it should still feel pleasant if you're in that sunshine. That'll be the case again on Sunday. We start off with blue skies, a wee bit more cloud bubbling up in the afternoon. Then it melts away into the evening. Again, the temperature's 8 or 9 degrees. Is that weather going to last? Well, the dry and settled weather will be fighting against wet and windy weather in the northwest. At this stage, it does look as if the wet and windy weather should stay well to the northwest. Here, we should hang on to the drier and quieter conditions.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
And that's it from us. I'll be here with bulletins throughout the weekend.
And I'll see you again on Monday at 6. For now, though, good night.
Good night.